All right, guys, welcome back to Cold Pizza Watch Reviews. Today, I'm talking about Rolex nicknames. Now, you might be new to watch collecting or Rolexes in general, and you hear all these nicknames thrown about. Smurf, Blusey, Kermit, what does all this stuff mean? Well, I'm going to try to clear some of it up for you today. Now, I'm not covering every single nickname because just about every Rolex reference number out there has one. I'm just going to go over the ones that you're likely to hear about when you're watching YouTube videos or looking for your watch online. So let's jump right into it. I'm going to start off with the Batman. Now the Batman is a GMT Master 2 with a black dial and a blue and black bezel on an Oyster bracelet. Next is the Batgirl, is a GMT Master 2, black dial, blue and black bezel on a Jubilee bracelet. So when you see that Jubilee bracelet, it's going to be called the Batgirl. You see the Oyster bracelet, going to be called the Batman. That's really what distinguishes those two apart. Moving on, the Pepsi. The Pepsi is a GMT Master with a black dial and a red and blue bezel, which gives it the look of the Pepsi logo. Next, let's go to the Hulk. That's a Submariner date with a green dial and matching green bezel. So it's just green across the board, sub date. That is the Hulk. Next is the Rolex Daytona Panda. That is a white dial that has the contrasting black subdials. So that is going to be the reference Rolex Daytona Panda. When someone says it's a Panda, the original is the white dial with the contrasting black subdials. Moving on to the Root Beer. That is a GMT Master 2 with a black dial and a brown and black bezel. Looks similar to root beer or a root beer soda logo. Going on to the Kermit. The Kermit is a Submariner date, and it's got a real vivid green bezel and a black dial. Now, if you're looking at the Kermit and you're looking at the Starbucks, you're probably like, hey man, what's the difference between these two? Because they look almost the same. Well, the Kermit came out in 2003, and it's reference 16610LV. Followed up was the Starbucks. Again, the Starbucks is a Submariner date, but it has a Cerachrome bezel. So it's a green bezel, black dial. It was launched in 2020. It's reference 12610LV. So you're going to see the difference in the reference number that's going to distinguish the Kermit from the Starbucks. And they look slightly different when you have them side by side, but if you're not sure, the date of release was 2003 on the Kermit, which is a 16610LV. The launch date on the Starbucks was 2020. It's reference 12610LV. So there gets to be some confusion between the Kermit and the Starbucks. Just remember the newer one is going to be the Starbucks if it matters to anybody. Moving on, the Sprite. The Sprite's a GMT Master 2 black dial with a black and green bezel, but you're going to know it's a Sprite. You're going to see that crown at the 9 o'clock position. Therefore, you know you're looking at a Sprite. Moving on to another soda name, the Coke. That's a GMT Master with a black dial and a black and red bezel. Gives it the look of the Coke logo. Going on to the James Cameron. That's a deep sea sea dweller. So this is going to be easy to distinguish because you're going to see that kind of black to blue gradient dial. And it's named after James Cameron because it was dedicated to him after he did his solo dive to the Marina Trench. Black to blue dial. That's the James Cameron if you ever wondered. Another one that you're going to hear thrown around, which I didn't think really confused people until I started doing videos about the OP. You'll hear OP. What's the OP? That's an Oyster Perpetual. That's just the straight Oyster Perpetual. That's the entry-level Rolex. That's not an Oyster Perpetual Datejust. It's not an Oyster Perpetual Air King. It's just an Oyster Perpetual. Therefore, that's why people call it an OP. Now, almost every Rolex is an Oyster Perpetual except for the Cellini, but this is it. It is just OP, Oyster Perpetual. There's nothing else in its name. That's why it gets called the OP a lot. Next, you'll hear DJ. You'll hear the DJ. Hey, I've got an OP or I've got a DJ. Which one? The DJ is a date just. And a lot of times they're mentioned in the same conversation because they're both sold in 36 millimeters. So DJ is a date just. Moving on to another date just is the Buckley or the Buckley dial. Now that is a date just with a printed Roman numeral dial. They're not applied, therefore they're not going to be raised. It's going to be printed onto the dial. And it's called the Buckley because it's named after John Buckley, the Rolex dealer. He's got a great YouTube channel, TikTok channel. You should go check him out. But that is the Buckley dial, printed flat Roman numeral dial. All right, the President. This is a Rolex day date coming in gold or platinum, and it has a very specific bracelet. It's got three distinctive links. They're kind of like a D or D-shaped 3-link bracelet. Is special to the President, and you'll recognize it because it will not be a Jubilee and it will not be an Oyster bracelet. That's the President. Smurf, obviously all blue. It's a Submariner date, blue dial, blue bezel. Now people will say, well, what's the difference in the Smurf and the Blusey? Basically, the Blusey is two-tone. It's a two-tone sub-date, blue dial and blue bezel. So I've heard people say they had a Blusey and they had a Smurf, or I've heard someone say the Blusey or the Smurf was a Blusey when they're talking about the two watches. The Blusey has got to have that gold. It's got to have that two-tone in it. Smurf, just all blue, no two-tone to it, as far as having the gold mixed in with it. Next, you're going to hear the Polar, Explorer Polar thrown around a lot. That's just an Explorer 2 white dial because originally the Explorer was a black dial. When they came out with the white dial version, people gave it the nickname Polar because it's white. But if you're looking at Explorer 2 white dial, that's the Polar. You don't really need to be worried, am I getting a Polar? That's it. The Thunderbird. Now, this is another kind of vintage watch that you're going to see a lot, but it comes up when I'm searching, and I thought I would explain to people what the Thunderbird is. Essentially, it's a turnograph. If you're looking at a turnograph, you might see in parentheses someone calling it a Thunderbird because originally this was pitched to the Thunderbirds of the Air Force, and it had their logo, or some of the ones that they, I guess, gave to them had their logo on it. Now, it'll still be called the Thunderbird, but I doubt it's going to have a Thunderbird logo on it. Essentially, it's just a Rolex turnograph with a rotating bezel. Lastly, the Rolex James Bond. That's the Submariner 6538 that Sean Connery wore in Dr. No in 1962. So that is the Rolex James Bond. It'll always be called that. That is the reference 6538. So this is just a quick breakdown of Rolex nicknames if you didn't know them. If I missed one that's pretty common, put it in the comments below and I'll pin it so other people can see it. I just felt these are the ones that you're likely to see and hear when you're searching the internet. Leave yours below if you have one I missed. And as always, I appreciate you tuning in to Cold Pizza Watch Reviews.